ask, say if there's anything wrong, just mention it. And then for now, I think we would like to start with the presentation. Since we're a small group, if you have any questions in between, feel free to ask. Maybe for some questions we will say, okay, we will discuss that in the breakout room, and some things we will directly address. Okay, there is some nice music outside on the street here, but yeah, okay. You can see my screen, right? Yes, I think actually you can. Okay, so actually Sophie will start with explaining our journey and also the first part of the journey.
Yes, I will, Charlotte, indeed. So what we're going to do now is Bettina, Charlotte, and myself, we're going to tell you something about our journey, our do's and don'ts within organizing horizontally, because in about the 3 years that we've been organized horizontally now, we have tried a lot of things. Some things went really right, some things didn't really work at all, and we have distilled that in 8 points that we think are the most valuable to tell you about. Starting with core values, mission and vision. If you can go to the next slide, yes. So usually in a company, you have a manager or a boss, and they usually embody the moral compass of a company. They decide where they want to go, or they have a vision, for what the company should be. And when you're organized horizontally, you don't have that. You don't have that manager or that boss. So you have to invent that moral compass together. You have to define your core values, write them down, and that'll help you. Just like if somebody asks you to do something, you will always check your own moral compass, whether it's something that you would do or would not. So core values are like the non-human moral compass that we have. So every time we, for example, get a project where we don't know if it suits the company or not, we check with our core values, does it fit in here? Does it feel good? And from then on, we can decide whether we do or do not want to do it.
Oh yeah, that'd be nice.
So something we learned really early on as well, which is definitely a don't, is coming up with solutions together. We thought at the start we used to have group meetings every month where we would decide on very important things for the company. And we had a few where we would all sit around in a group and put in a topic. And I see Rosalie smiling because she remembers this very well. It was very frustrating because we were all talking about something that we all found very important, and everybody had an opinion, and we went back and forth, and there was no conclusion. And we spent a lot of time doing this. So very, very early on, we said, no, this is not going to work. So how do we work now when something important needs to be decided? Actually, for pretty much everything we do, it's done by a small group of people from the company. And Sophie will explain later, we're divided into teams, and those teams have different roles and responsibilities, and they take on different projects. But sometimes there's a new project that doesn't really fit in one of the teams, and then there's a little project group of people. Like Rosalie and I once took on a project about how the work is divided within the company, and then the two of us went and thought about that, got a lot of input from people in the company, and then came with a proposal. And then a lot of people from the company said, no, we don't really like your proposal. We would do it such and such. So we went back and we adjusted it. And then we came back with the second proposal. And we said, okay, we're going to do an experiment. So for the next 3 months, we're going to try out this project. And that actually works really well. So that's pretty much how we work for almost everything. And we give the mandate to the little group, and those people do their thing. And then they come back and present, and then people can give feedback. But in the end, the final decision is with those people. And then there's one exception, which is when you make a decision that affects the whole company. There's something called objection of principle. And an objection of principle is something we ask for when something is happening. For example, if we were going to move our office to a new place, something very big, like now we just took on a new legal structure, that was something we definitely put forward for objection of principle. And then people can say, no, I have an objection of principle, because the only reason you can give one of those is because you think what's happening is going to be detrimental to the whole company. So if you think it's very bad for the company as a whole, then you can say no, and it won't happen. But what usually happens is you can not agree, but not think it's going to be bad for the whole company. And then you can say, I disagree, but I have no objection of principle, and then it will still go forward. And that's how you get things done in a horizontal organization. So another thing that is very important are checklists and structures. And Sophie talked about manager roles, which we'll talk about a little more later as well. But one of the things that managers are good at is saying, these are all of your tasks. And since in a horizontal organization, we don't have managers, this is one of the ways that we decide what we expect each other to do. So for example, with all of our makers teams, we have text writers, illustrators, editors, project planners. All those teams got together at the start of Bord&Stift and decided what are the things that we expect of each other as maker groups. So what are the things that make a good text writer? What should they all think about? So we made all these different steps and checklists, and those are useful for a number of reasons. I would say 3 reasons. For yourself to know what you're supposed to do, for each other to be able to give each other feedback and have it not be a big thing. You can say, hey, Rosalie, I see that you forgot to do this. Hey, Sophie, I see you didn't send the mail, but we decided on this in the checklist. So then it's not a hierarchical thing, you're just helping each other. And it's useful for new employees because you could easily say, hey, new editor, here's the checklist for editors. These are all the things that you should think about.
Yeah, and another thing which was definitely a don't, which was for me very surprising, was that we had too little attention for tensions. And it's very funny because I always thought, oh, we're such a nice company and we're so open and relaxed and friendly. Of course, everybody dares to say everything. I'm very sure about that. And then we started to learn and visit other horizontal organizations. And then we learned there is something called the tension round. And in a tension round, just like a check-in, you go to every person. Actually, then it is a round. So you mention, hey, Bettina. And then you ask, do you have any tensions? And a tension is defined as the difference in potential between the current situation and how it could possibly be. So it can be positive, like, oh, this is going really well, but I feel we can even do better. Or it can be really like an irritation, like, I think it's really irritating. We always leave the office so messy. I think we should do something about it. Just any small irritation, any possibility you feel, you get invited to share that. And I was really, really, really surprised when we started to do that, because there came all kind of skeletons out of the closet, which I didn't expect at all, because I thought everybody always felt free to say everything. And we did have a very open, supportive culture. But it turned out, in the end, nobody wants to be a nagging Nancy. Nobody wants to be irritating. So actually, when you have just a small irritation, you including myself, you usually don't say it. But when somebody explicitly asks, hey, do you have any tone and really irritated and misunderstandings appeared, person, do you have any tensions with it? And then there's also the kind of more organizational explanation why it is important. Why is it important to ask for everybody's tension and to get them on the table? And in the book Holacracy by Brian Robertson, holacracy is a specific form of how to organize without managers. And in his book, he uses the analogy with an airplane. He describes he's also a pilot, so he's in an airplane. He just learned, so he's not 100% sure about everything. And he's very high up in the air, and he sees his dashboard, and all the lights are green, everything is fine. There's just one small light flickering red in the left corner. And he tries to remember what the light meant, but he actually forgot. And then he kept on checking all the other lights. Everything was fine. So he thought, okay, I will just continue flying, should be all fine. It turned out the red light was saying something about the level of oil in the airplane. It was very dangerous. He almost crashed, almost died, just because of ignoring one light. And what's the analogy within an organization is that all the lights, little light bulbs, are actually people. And everybody sees different things. Everybody feels different tensions, because somebody who works as an illustrator notices different things in the company than somebody who works as a project planner. And the sad thing is that what often happens within organizations, everybody tries to agree with each other what the tensions are. Like, no, that's not really a problem. While somebody else says, yes, I think it's a problem. And what you try to do with this tension round and inviting tension is honor everybody's view, and also saying everybody's view is valid and there's some information in there. So if you feel tension, even though other people don't feel that tension, it's still relevant, and you still want that on the table, and use that irritation or energy to make a change, to improve something, to get something done. And in this way, you start to work more like a collective brain. So you use everybody's input, everybody's senses to continue developing the organization.
Another really important point is being conscious of letting go and taking responsibility. In the next slide, yes, here you see a beautiful illustration Bettina made, which is already quite self-explanatory, but let me explain it even further. So here you have kind of the tugging war between a new employee and the founder. So on the left side, you have the new employee. I can very much relate to that. Not that long ago, I was a new employee. And you come within this new organization, and for me and for a lot of people probably, they've never worked in a horizontal organization. And for a long time, I felt, or I wanted to feel a little bit invisible. Like, you don't want to, you're like, I do have plans, but what do I know? They're probably stupid. All of these people know better, you know, who the hell am I? And you really have to, it takes some time, but you really have to learn to have faith in yourself, have faith in your plans, to trust yourself that your ideas are good, and to take a little bit of the company so you can realize those plans. And every time you take a little bit of the company, the founder has to give a little bit of the company, because the founder, like they mothered or fathered a little baby. They build a company, they made it into something that now has multiple employees. And I mean, now you have decided, which is a beautiful idea, but now you have decided that with all these other people, they are going to be the parent of your little baby as well. I mean, it's a beautiful idea, but it's also a little bit scary. So you have to have faith in your employees that they, just like you, have great ideas, and that they will realize that, and that they will treat your little baby with care and with responsibility, and that when they take and you give a little bit, that everything will be fine. You have to have mutual trust and trust in yourself. And share the information that the founder also has to share the information that they have built up. Like, they already gathered a lot of info, so share that with the rest so they can enjoy, and that helps them as well.
Yes, a lot of lessons we had to learn. Another lesson we learned is that there's a difference between being transparent and being transparent with attention. And just being transparent is not enough. Being transparent is very important for a horizontal organization, because you expect every employee to act fully, make very important company decisions. But then you also need to have all the information as an employee, of course. But there's a very big difference between, here's an example. For example, if you want to have insight in all the finances of the company, so that's all transparent with us. Everybody knows each other's salary, what is our profit, what are our costs, everything is transparent. But before, it was transparent, and we were like, as a team that was responsible for the finances, 3 people within, they were like, no, but it's transparent, you can find the numbers, you just have to log in some very complicated bookkeeping software, and the login is not really easy to find, but it is transparent, you can find it. Now, in practice, nobody logged into that software to check the numbers. So what is your responsibility as a team within a horizontal organization? Is to make the information really accessible and understandable to everybody. So instead of having this really complicated overview of the numbers, we changed to having during the weekly meeting, there's a very clear overview, very simple overview. How much quotations did come in this week? How many of them actually became a real assignment? How many of them did not become an assignment? So what's the revenue we can expect for the coming time? And every month we have a very clear overview of the costs and income. And that's something you always need to remember, like, okay, how can I make the information not only that it's somewhere findable, but how can I communicate it in a very elegant, easy, understandable way? And of course, we are a small company, but even big companies, because horizontal organizations, some people think it's only for small organizations, but there are examples of organizations which have 70,000 employees, like Hire, for example, a Chinese company. It's also organized horizontally. It doesn't matter the size, but then of course you have to do things a little bit differently. So instead of just having one clear overview of the numbers, if you run a very large company, they actually give people accountancy courses so everybody can deeply understand the numbers of if you work in a really large organization. So it differs per company, but the question is always, how can every employee have access and understand all the important information so they can make the wisest decision in each moment?
Yes, and now I'm going to tell you something about defining responsibilities. As you've already heard a little bit, everything that is not, we have our makers team, those are the people who, like I am an editor, you know, like, and Bettina is an illustrator, that is our function within making a whiteboard video. But everything that goes on within the organization, which are a lot of tasks and a lot of responsibilities, we have divided up in teams. So I am also, besides being an editor, I'm part of team website and team marketing. So together with a few others, we also take care of marketing. We build a website or we update it. And there are multiple levels to this. So you check everything that has to be done within an organization, and you give a team certain responsibilities, or a team has certain responsibilities. Then what we have is, as you can see, we have a Excel sheet, where you can find every team, and you can find who is in that team, what responsibilities does that team have, and are they allowed is a bit of a big word, but are they allowed to make the decisions themselves, or is it something that should be up for objection of principle? So for instance, I think it's an example that Bettina used as well. We have team office. They do everything around the office. They take care of things. And if they're like, we have to have a new plant now, Bord&Stift is not going to survive if we don't get another plant. That is up to them. They can buy that plant, they can put it in the office, and it's going to look awesome. But if they are like, we need to relocate, we need to have a different office, that is something that will be put up for objection of principle. So that is something that concerns us all, and we have to decide together. So even though a team works on that, that is something we all eventually have to, well, vote on, but decide whether we are for or against it. You're on mute.
Thank you. Our final don't that we have for today is undervaluing managers' tasks, because although at the start of this horizontal trajectory, we all had kind of the feeling of, oh, managers, you don't need them, we're fine without them. Actually, managers do very important work, and the manager's tasks are about 6 pages of things that you would like to have done in your company. But there's just so many things that no one person can realistically do them all, which is why, in our opinion, it makes sense to divide them among all the people in the company. But what we did at the start, a mistake we made, was forgetting one of the manager's tasks, which was kind of the personal attention that a manager can give. You know, if you see that somebody is maybe not feeling okay or hasn't been at the office for a while, that you check in with them and say, hey, is everything going okay? And we didn't really have assigned roles of who would be responsible for checking in with which person. So some people were going through difficult times in their personal lives and felt like they were drifting away from the company a little bit, and like nobody was really noticing, which of course is really sad. In a company where we actually thought that we were quite engaged and quite in tune with each other. So what we introduced for that was the mentor system, where each person in Bord&Stift could say whether they would like to be a mentor. So a lot of people applied to be mentors, and whether and who they would like to be their mentor. So everybody is coupled to 2 mentors. And the funny thing we have is that since everybody has a mentor and everyone can be a mentor, I am actually the mentor of somebody who is also my mentor. But that actually works really nicely because you can step into that role and then you can be mentored. And then another time when you need that person to be your mentor, that they can step into that role and you can be mentored. Yeah.
Yeah, and this was a part of our journey, and of course there are like 500 more small do's and don'ts we discovered, but there's only so much time to get into the details. And the question is, what is the next step? What will be our do and what will be our don't? And this is something which is quite a paradigm shift for people, because usually people think when they want to organize something, okay, I implement something, and then that implementation is done, and then we continue working as an organization. But actually the opposite is true. When you want to work horizontally without managers, you enter a process where you are constantly evolving, where you are constantly testing if something works, doesn't work, evaluating it, removing things that don't work, adding things that hopefully work. It's a constant evolutionary process. And it also relates to something Frédéric Laloux wrote about in his book Reinventing Organizations. It's about a different kind of organizations you can be. And there's organizations, he gives them different colors: red organizations, which are based on power, fear of chaos, often mafia style organizations. They have more the traditional organizations, which are based on hierarchy. And then you have a teal organization, and that's an organization which has an evolutionary purpose, which can constantly reinvent itself, which works without managers in a more cellular structure. And that can also serve in a different way the world, kind of. So here, for example, also of Patagonia, of Buurtzorg, which are both companies which relate in a very different way to the world than just making money. And it's also something we aspire to be, and hopefully continue to evolve and make this evolutionary process in a direction of something good. So actually now I think, let me stop sharing my screen. This was kind of our story we would like to share about the horizontal organization. We're a little bit faster than we expected, which is nice. I would propose we take a small break now, so everybody can just feel their body, get some tea or something, and that we get back at 5 to 1. 12. No. Oh, your time is different, right?
It's more early, so that's like 5 to 12?
5 to 12.
I think so.
5 to 12 for you guys.
So in 10 minutes.
So in 10 minutes, let's get let's get back here in 10 minutes, and then we move into the breakout rooms. So see you then.
Perfect.
See you.